Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Let's podcast. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios. The Yule log is kicking, Joe. It is Christmas Day. People hopefully are opening up their gifts with the OG above the mantle.
Opening their gifts with the gift of the OG. What a way to celebrate.
This might be your most ridiculous thing.
It is.
Yes. Like, hey, I know what we'll do. You think the NFL's taking these corners? Nah. OG's taking these Christmas corners.
You can have the nighttime. We want the gift opening time. That's where we want the OG.
I mean, at the rate the NBA is going, they might want to play games at 7 o'clock in the morning while people are opening up Christmas gifts and sipping on coffee and whatnot and enjoying the Yule log. It is time for the 2024 year in review, Joe. I think we all understand what number one will be. We'll get to it. No spoilers here. Y'all know what the deal is. But before we get started, what was your overall takeaway for 2024? Your biggest lesson learned in 2024?
I would say that the surreal can be real. Twice we saw this. We saw it with NC State basketball in DC, first winning the ACC championship. Then we saw them make the Final Four, which no one, and I mean no one, saw coming.
No.
And then we fast forward to last week, 2 weeks ago, we see North Carolina football hire Bill Belichick, 6-time Super Bowl champion, and not just hire Bill Belichick at some irony alert at some sort of bargain basement rate that Belichick would love to do.
Yeah.
Instead, it was this full push, this full commitment to football and to entering the new era of college athletics, where they're making an unprecedented financial commitment to football, not basketball, which will be an interesting thing to see play out in 2025. But yeah, I mean, said it all along. It's been the year of the wolf. We had NC State. Then we had my guy, Damon Nahas, win the national championship. The state guy winning a national championship for Carolina women's soccer. You know, it's been that kind of year.
The lesson here is one that I've already known, but I hope that people understand and how the year went for this podcast in particular. I say I root for the show. I've always said I root for the show. And if you need further proof that NC State being good is good for everybody, well, we're a prime example of that. It gets to a point where complaining about where things are or firing the next coach or not being happy, after a while, that just leads to apathy and nobody engages with you at all. I mean, I can look at the numbers and I can tell you that kind of hit with football for NC State up until the end when the North Carolina NC State game happened. Of course, things shot back up. But I can tell you, no marketing budget would help me quite like NC State going to the Final Four because people want to be in on it. And we saw this with the Carolina Hurricanes as well. Once they get into the playoffs and they're winning and people are feeling good, they want to be a part of that ride. So when the teams are successful, everybody is successful around it. And this is something that I've always used to push back on this idea that, oh man, you must be loving all this terribleness. I'm like, no, I need everybody to be good. I root for the show that way because when everybody's at a high level, competing at a high level, everybody's invested.
Well, it makes me laugh though.
Yeah.
Right? Because you and I both worked for media companies who think, man, why are page views down? Man,
why are ratings down?
Why are ratings down? God, those guys must really suck at their job.
Nah.
Man, we gave away a bunch of tickets. Man, I mean, you wrote this incredible story. We broke all this news. We did all this stuff. It's like, yeah, man, when the teams are good, people want to tune in. When the teams are bad, they tune in once.
Yes.
They want an explanation once.
Mm-hmm.
And once they've gotten that explanation, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to see it.
Well, this is a good way to transition into the year in review, which starts with the Carolina Panthers. We've hit a low point with the Carolina Panthers where you can fire a coach, you get the bump. You can have the top pick in the draft as a bad organization. You will get that bump. But when you still stink, when you have the pig pen squiggly lines that emanate from you, like in Charlie Brown, After a while, people don't want to be around that stink. Just look at the fact that the Carolina Panthers weren't even on locally here in the Triangle because they're so bad. It's much more, it's better for your ratings to have the Eagles and the Commanders rather than the Panthers, right? And it actually started right out of the gate in January when David Tepper, at a low point of last season, decided to toss a drink at a fan. And I went back into the YouTube archives and I pulled up this. I feel like David Tepper is doing the add water, like instant mix of how to become the most clowned owner in the NFL. Like, all right.
Yeah, we lost Snyder.
We don't have Snyder.
What do we got?
There's David Tepper. There's a little flourish. Did you see the little flourish from David Tepper? Like the hand flick?
Club twirl in golf.
That is some Bravo reality show sequence right there.
The cat meme. The woman yelling at the cat.
Yelling at the cat like, how dare you? If this were an RPO, why did you choose to pass in this situation? You should have kept the cup and run back with it. That was the move you were supposed to make.
Why are you going to the... Like,
all the owners go to the games, man. They all go.
Somebody needs to sit this guy down, Joe. I've been in Jacksonville on New Year's. That's nowhere you need to be. Just stay home, man.
You don't want to go
watch the game at home.
You don't want to go to the Hard Rock on the riverfront?
No.
So that was the drink toss back in January. Fast forward to April.
Let's be fair.
Yeah.
It was water.
It was just water.
Okay.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said drink. It's technically correct.
It's a drink.
But it's not like he dumped a margarita.
It doesn't matter. He tossed a drink at somebody.
Or even a beer.
So we fast forward to April ahead of the draft. And again, everybody's over David Tepper. And you get to Dilworth's Bar and Grill. And they have this sign that says, please somebody else make the pick. And David Tepper decided to go into this restaurant and ask, who put that sign up? The Panthers cannot have nice things because David Tepper is just one big man baby who constantly acts like he has a full diaper. And that is David Tepper. So there's a restaurant in Charlotte called Dilworth's. And that new sign read, let the GM and coach pick. Which, I mean, yeah. So he apparently goes in and WBT in Charlotte got the footage of David Tepper walking into the restaurant. I guess that's his driver or his like right-hand man. Who's the dude with him? We know who the dude is with him?
The wingman is a complete failure. You're the one who has to say to him, boss, this ain't a good idea.
No.
This isn't it. We'll go make fun of it. We'll go to your burner account and make fun of it online. We don't need to go in there and make a spectacle of this. You don't need this.
Yeah.
He needs someone in his life to say, you don't need this.
It's all right.
Okay. So at least we got 2 Tepper tantrums to begin the year.
But here's a funny thing that I did not expect. Like as you started the show today, you know, the surreal, the real, everything else. If you told me back in January, if you told me in April that David Tepper actually wouldn't be the most embarrassing owner in the NFL to close out 2024, I would have said, bullshit. But here comes Woody Johnson right at the end, baby, right at the end with an athletic piece that paints a horrendous picture of the Jets organization. And actually it manages to make Aaron Rodgers almost, not fully, almost sympathetic. I don't want to rehash all the Woody Johnson story, but it illustrates the point.
Well, you can bottom line it. He was making trade evaluations based on a player's Madden ratings.
He had his
based on his kids' teenage son's input.
I mean, how many instances do we have of fail sons not being checked by their dads in these situations, including one of the sons when one of the kickers of the story was they finally win a game 4 weeks after they fire Robert Saleh. One of the kids, I forgot which one it was, Brick or Jack, I have no idea, actually superseded Aaron Rodgers' plan to give the game ball to the interim coach. So instead, the kid takes one of the extra balls and hands it to the wide receivers, starts dropping up a bunch of F-bombs like he's a coach, and then he posts it on his Instagram. So David Tepper's going, damn, thanks, Johnson family. I thought I was going to be the NFL owner embarrassment of 2024. The Johnsons took it to another level. And I would say this too. Have we heard from David Tepper this season's, the 24-25 season so far?
I was going to say, first of all, I think the Panthers are better than they were last year. Technically, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Yes, because they went 2-15 last year. They're 3-11 right now.
Yeah.
A couple chances to even improve on that. That's number one. Number two, I suspected in week 2 when they benched Bryce Young, there was like a call coming from within the building.
Yeah.
But I think you had this one right in the sense that they benched Young because the players in the locker room were like, hey, he's struggling and you have to be fair to us. Let Andy Dalton play a few games, figure some things out, and give us a chance to be competitive while, maybe on the side you can rehabilitate Bryce. Not that handsome Dave Canales had a plan to rehabilitate Bryce Young because he badmouthed him every step of the way up until about 2 weeks ago, where he finally relented and almost acknowledged the progress that Bryce Young has made this year. And Bryce isn't great. He's far from it. But I do think he's learning. I do think he is improving. And I do think he has given himself a chance in year 3 to say, fine, here we are. Whereas before, I was thinking they wouldn't even let him play in year 3.
Now, speaking of people who started off the year in a bad place and they end the year looking somewhat better, but we'll see in 2025. And that is ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. Let's go all the way back to January. Florida State, Jordan Travis, no college football playoff. Jim Phillips, ACC Commissioner, thinks that releasing a PR statement is the way to win battles in this modern era of college sports. Now, you got to be on the ground. You got to be on TV. You got to be working the room.
Boots to asses, as Rock likes to say.
As much as I like to make fun of Greg Sankey and the SEC, and it just means more, that man has his own head. I'm not making this up. The man has his own headset he brings to SEC football media days, and he does all the interviews when asked, okay? Because he understands that's how you work your room. That's how you get people to talk positively about you. That's how you win the PR war.
Yeah.
And I remember starting the year off just kind of hammering Jim Phillips with the way it was handled with Florida State and the college football playoff. And that continued into the ACC tournament. But we started to see a change in Jim Phillips. I want to say it started in March when he went on ESPN during the ACC tournament to talk about the league as an undervalued conference needing more bids than the projections were giving you. And that you can look at March success. You can see that you can talk about the numbers in the Big 12. I mean, how much time did we spend talking about the Big 12 cooking the books?
They solved the net, right? They had the answers to the test.
So we get to ACC kickoff in July, and I think this is where Jim Phillips really started to hone in on a message and start to understand the game. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. All I asked in 2024 was to play it and evolve from there. So we go back to July. We happen to get a sit down in the super secret Jim Phillips bunker in Charlotte for ACC kickoff. And you commended him for how they combated the Big 12, not just in terms of like money and all this other stuff, but actually spitting some bars, if you will.
You are literally the first ACC commissioner who has ever. You only gave us the numbers that were on the 1099. But I'm giving you credit, man. Yeah. Like, where did that come from? Like, that you felt strongly that you needed to share this information.
It was about, because you hear stuff, out there.
Yeah, from the Big 12. Yeah.
It was. Let's have some fact checking going on, right? Maybe that's what we should have. During some of these things. It was also a point of pride, if you will, relative to a 14.5% growth, and about 9% of that was from television. So we've done some good things beyond just waiting around on the television piece of it for that to grow. So, and I expect the same thing when the next one comes out, the next 990 comes out, that will have a pretty similar kind of success story to give. And that's what we have to continue to do. And listen, you guys have talked about it a ton. We have to be as creative as we possibly can be. And I understand, not everybody loved the expansion and what that meant. At the end of the day, the dollars that provided, $600 million or so for our legacy current schools, was something that we need to do, as well as protecting the league from a sheer number standpoint. Getting 3 schools that match up with the ACC.
When you say $600 million, that's over the next however many years?
Over the course of our television contract.
So there was a nitty-gritty conversation about some numbers. Yes, talking about the league, it gave them financial stability.
And this was all precipitated by the Big 12 trying to say, like, no, we're number 3.
Mm-hmm.
The SEC does not delude itself into thinking they're on equal footing financially with the SEC or Big 10.
No.
But what he was saying is, I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Big 12, who did lose their top 2 brands, right? Did reconfigure. They added a bunch of good.
If they're fine.
They're perfectly acceptable schools, right? Like, it's not like they added some home. Like, I was very critical of Stanford and Cal and SMU. Mm-hmm. Very critical.
You put some respect on SMU because they actually went and did the damn thing, and they're in the college football playoff.
I knew what SMU was going to do. Football,
yeah, I know.
But I was critical of it because, quite frankly, I thought it was a short-term gain for the ACC. And $600 over the life of the contract is actually not that much.
Mm-hmm.
Still more.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But I would have, but you can't go back. They solved the problem in front of them. They should have added Oregon and Washington, or made a better deal with the Pac-12 in general. There was a deal to be made there to be brokered there. That was not. But that moved past them. They tried to make the next best move. I do think they made the next best move, certainly financially for them. So here they are. But, you look at the football season and not a single person could have predicted what was going to happen. I had SMU being good. I had SMU showing up in the championship game.
Nobody could predict Florida State absolutely being a disaster.
Not a single person could have predicted Florida State going from 12-0 to 2-10. Like, that. What changed, Joe? They went in the portal. They spent money. They had the same coach. They had the same coaching staff. Like, it's really kind of remarkable if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it also illustrates what I've been saying. Not only we've seen it in college basketball, and now it's becoming crystal clear in football. It's a year-to-year proposition. Year to year. Even for a school with the financial resources of Florida State. 1 year you can be 12-0. 1 year you can find an All-American and an NFL Rookie of the Year candidate from Albany. The next, you got DJ Uiagalelei. Now, they probably should have seen DJU's problems and deficiencies coming.
Yeah.
In fairness.
Yeah. That again, that's classic coaching hubris where you think, yeah.
Oh, I can fix him.
Clemson does. They don't have the skill position guys we have. That's classic.
Also, in fairness, they swung for Cam Ward and did not get him.
Yes.
In fairness.
That's true. But what did that get Miami?
Well, that's where you have a bad coach. Straight up, a bad game coach in Mario Cristobal.
Right.
So,
but you're hitting on the bigger problem here. And this is something to tie it back to Jim Phillips. We had another opportunity to catch up with him in October at ACC Tip-Off.
Okay.
And there's branding, accomplished greatness, and all this other stuff. But you need to win. You need to win. You got to back it up with the branding. And I thought that our exchange with him was entertaining on multiple levels.
So what is the ACC brand now? Is it as simple as we win in March? How do you market yourself?
Accomplished greatness. You guys been paying attention?
I need.
Did you ask to take that rug, or was that rug given to you?
I get it.
Yes.
I totally get the branding, but there seems to be this disconnect with the college basketball people. I think you just did a hit with Field of 68, where they spend a lot of time talking about November and December. Yeah. We spend more time talking about, that's cool, but that doesn't matter when we get to February and March.
Right. Yeah.
That's where that butting of heads happens. Yeah. How do you combat that?
I don't know that I have the perfect answer for it. Other than we have performed in March. And that was part of my remarks yesterday at the forum, is you have undervalued us. Going from 5 to 6 is really not what we're interested in. We want to get back to the days that we all remember, where you're at 8 and 9, and now with 18 in the league, getting to double digits should be a realistic goal. And I agree with what you've said. And we have the network, which is great, but it's beyond the network. It's about the partnership we have with ESPN and getting on First Take and getting on Get Up and getting on Sports Center and making sure that the hits during the pregame show or halftime shows of college basketball on ESPN, they're talking about the ACC. So that to me is more on me to be out there in a more visible way.
So that was Jim Phillips in October. And listening back to it for the first time, talking about getting double digits. Well, clearly that's not going to happen in basketball. The double digits is going to go the SEC's way because they're just crushing everybody right now. And I think what's happening here, and this is something that I've been hammering at the end of the year, Jim got the message. Jim is trying to play the game, but that's only half the equation. The ACC, with all their hand-wringing about what Joe Lunardi might tweet, with all their hand-wringing about net, with all the things that they can complain about, there is something that is within their control. Win. Play your game. And this is a question that we could probably move into 2025. Are we finding out that the issue with ACC basketball specifically, football is what it is. We don't need to rehash why football in the ACC is the way that it is, the makeup of the schools and all that stuff. Basketball is a different beast. And the question that you and I have been asking, and we don't know the answer to it, is a can't versus won't. Can't versus won't. Those are two distinct things. And I am wondering whether or not these schools have been caught flat-footed in their unwillingness to modernize themselves. I know Duke, and we're going to get to Duke in a second. Duke has been open about their willingness to play this game. I'm not sure about the others and that are capable of doing it.
Yeah.
That's why it gets into a can't versus won't. There are some schools that just can't. They don't have the money. We've talked to Georgia Tech coaches in the past, right? You want to get Steve Forbes
Boston College, one of the person on their staff said to me, last year at the ACC tournament, he said, flat out told me, he goes, I went up to Jaden Zachary and I told him, you need to go and get NIL money and play some. He goes, if you come back next year, I'm going to kick you out.
Right.
You have to go make money. And he's playing for Clemson this year.
We sat down with Josh Pastner, statute of limitations, and he was very open about, like, buddy, I'm going into rooms like, oh, well, money. What money? We don't have the money.
Negative NIL. He said.
Negative NIL, right? That's what he said. Negative NIL. Candid conversations with Steve Forbes up until the last 2 years.
Sure.
It was, hey, man, I got to get this thing
There
up.
was a reluctance
for
Wake.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is where we are with basketball, and obviously it's not too far gone.
No.
But
again,
you gotta have this question
year to year.
Mm-hmm.
And that amongst that ACC success was Miami in 23 makes the Final Four with an NIL commitment. NC State makes the Final Four last year, not an NIL commitment on the level of an SEC team, but obviously their best players were bought in through the portal through NIL, and DJ Burns and DJ Horn, and even Mo Diarra from Missouri. So they were willing to play the game. There's too many ACC programs in basketball that are not willing to play the game and to get in there. And it's not just play the game. In the case of Carolina, you have to identify the right players. They got outbid for bigs. Bigs cost more in the portal. Yeah. Mo Diarra, who was the absolute key to what NC State did last year in March, averaged 3 points and 3 rebounds at Missouri. So sometimes you got to take chances. I'm not saying Carolina hasn't taken chances. I understand that. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. And that 4 position in particular has been an adventure for Carolina basketball in the portal. Sometimes you get Brady Manick and Harrison Ingram, and then other times you end up with a Van Allen Lubin who has not been helpful for them this year.
Yeah, it's been tough.
And the Nance brother, who was the only Nance in the whole family who can't play.
Or sometimes you can go and get Cooper Flagg and you can theoretically win in the portal. And so far you look okay. That gets us to Duke. The one team, as I mentioned, that seems willing to play the modern game. But in
this year in particular, they made an adjustment and got players out of the portal in addition to that number 1 rated class.
So we spent a good chunk of 2024 talking about the arrival of Cooper Flagg. We talked about Duke in the context of their 23-24 season. Yeah, man, cool. Your first 2 years were a warm-up for John Shire, but year 3 with Cooper Flagg was going to be this. That's when the Duke standard starts coming into play. So we get this lead up. We go back to October. John Shire sits down at ACC tip-off, and look, what else are you going to do? You're going to ask him about Cooper Flagg. So how many have you workshopped all of your Cooper Flagg answers on the drive over here?
I didn't think I would be asked about Cooper today, actually. So I'm surprised you're even bringing him up.
Weird, right? No, but I mean, this is not. Look, what's funny to me. We've been doing this long enough where it's yet another high-profile player coming to Duke, and outside, people act like, oh my, they get all hyper about it. But behind the scenes at Duke, this is just not par for the course, but clearly this is a school and a program that you've been a part of for a long time that is able to absorb all of this stuff, right?
Well, I feel for us, we're prepared to handle what comes with that, right? And to help Cooper know what he's going to go through, because there's a lot of attention. That's a blessing that people care, and that's also a burden in terms of still you have to go through the growth process of a season. So I think for Cooper, we just want to protect him, allow him to focus on what he needs to, and still appreciate having a guy with his talent. And it's a special thing for Duke and special thing for our fans. And now we have to put in the work.
So we've seen about 2 months worth of ACC basketball with Cooper Flagg. Put in the work. What exactly have we seen so far? Again, this is a 2024 story that bleeds into 2025. What have we seen so far?
Well-rounded, skilled player, makes the players around him better. Not a great shooter, not a great scorer. Above, he has plus defensive skills, but he's not overly athletic. He is a prodigy, but he's not a phenom, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
He does not overly wow you. You don't leave the game going, oh my goodness gracious, like a Zion Williamson dunk, like a Kobe White blur, like a Dennis Smith even had that bounce where you were like, that person has a different gear than normal people in their first year of college basketball. You don't leave games with that. But then you realize, well, there were turnovers against Kentucky. I get that. But then you look down and you realize, well, geez, he doesn't make mistakes. Geez, he's got 4 assists. Geez, he's got 9 boards. Geez, he's got 16 rebounds. Now, people didn't necessarily appreciate it and thought I was taking a shot at him when I compared him to Josh McRoberts from Josh McRoberts' final year at Duke. 14 points a game, 8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 2.5 blocks, 1.2 steals. Here we are, Cooper Flagg, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.4 blocks. I even said he'll probably make a few more threes than McRoberts and score a few more points. And lo and behold, it's not an insult. Josh McRoberts was the number 1 player in his class, by the way.
Yeah.
And played in the NBA for a long time.
People associate the Bob time with a not so great time at Duke. That's the issue.
I get that. I totally get that. And it was never meant as an insult. It was more of like, look at the progression. I think some people have kind of compared Cooper Flagg to a pocket Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that.
I could see that.
Look, I think we can get super, super complicated here. I think it's Duke, so therefore it's going to be elevated. It's ESPN that has a playbook that they're going to follow to make sure that, you engage with the product.
It's not just Duke, though. It's a throwback in the sense it's a white guy at Duke.
There's that, too. And look, he's a white guy with a little edge to him. He's a cold dude. And Joe is just 17 years old.
17.
So, but I can see the disconnect, and the light bulb went on for me in the Auburn game where Isaiah Evans is the story of the game. And yet ESPN is pushing out sick step back jumper from Cooper Flagg. We'll see how it all plays out when it comes to Cooper Flagg. But I think the biggest misconception is that we are remembering the Zion Williamson year incorrectly. Zion, while he was a phenomenal talent that was highly recruited, he was not going to be the bus driver. Who was the bus driver supposed to be, Joe?
Tell us who drives the bus. Tell us who drives the bus.
The bus driver was supposed to be the number 1 overall player in that class, RJ Barrett.
Yes.
And he was obviously outstanding for that team.
He was.
But you know what ultimately cost that team in the Final 8? Who was the bus driver?
It was supposed to be Zion.
At that point, it's going to be Zion if he doesn't touch the ball enough. Yeah. Same thing happened to Banchero, by the way, at the Final 4. He's driving that thing the whole year. You get to the final 10 minutes of that loss to Carolina, and he scarcely touches the ball, let alone shoots. So the one thing I think John Shire has done a really good job of this year, he's not putting it all on Cooper Flagg, in spite of what we've seen in some, George Mason most recently, where you're like, whoa, geez.
We saw it in the Auburn game.
Took 24 shots. You're like, whoa. The team is not constructed for Cooper Flagg to score that much. It's their success is ultimately going to rely on how does Con Knippel support? How does Tyrese Proctor support? Can Malwatch get on the floor in meaningful minutes? Can he have a Derek Lively-like renaissance?
Yeah.
Where you remember Derek Lively comes in, plays the post, and you're like, man, the game is past players like that by. No. They can affect in the pick and roll. They can affect on defense. And that's where I think Malwatch really needs to take a step up here. And you're asking a lot of Knippel and Malwatch and Flagg. You are. But to have some of those veteran players, Proctor in-house, Sion James being another, Gillis from Purdue. Yeah, you mentioned the player coming off the bench,
Isaiah Evans
to hit the 6 threes to beat number 1 Auburn.
Yeah,
don't ever get seduced by how well Duke shoots at Cameron. It does not translate.
No, it never translates.
Double A tournament, but the way Knippel can play, the way Proctor can play, the way Flagg can play, and Malwatch, those are all transferable skills. Duke will have a clean look at the national championship, a clean look at it. But the parts still all have to elevate as the season goes along.
This is all about melding things together. We're talking about Duke. I'm looking at DraftKings right now. Right now, they are a plus 900 favorite to win the NCAA tournament. Auburn's plus 800. Tennessee is plus 1100. UConn to three-peat is plus 1600. As far as your ACC conference winner, Duke is the only one in the minus 250 to win the ACC. Clemson is plus 650. North Carolina is plus 850. And I'm looking at NC State. They are plus 5,000. Look, it's the most wonderful time of the year. You are opening up presents, watching the OG year in review. We appreciate that. Now treat yourself later today with all the football that's going on, or later in the week with the college football playoff, hoops, you name it. It's all there. It's on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So here's what you do with DraftKings. If you're going to bet $5, use the promo code OG24 before you do that. So again, log into the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use the promo code OG24. You bet $5, you will get $150 in bonus bets when you win your bet. So $150 in bonus bet if your bet wins, as long as it's $5 with our friends at DraftKings. And it actually kind of ties us into 2024 year in review. Joe, how much gas mileage have you saved in 2024 starting in March? Since March now. How much gas have you saved?
Really wish you weren't putting me on the spot here. I will just say to you, if you're going to use on the apps, please use DraftKings.
Yes, use DraftKings. This was before March, before everything was officially legal in the state of North Carolina. But it is here, and you know what? It's been fun. And I enjoy the folks who got part of the $5 gang during the NCAA tournament, and of course the Canes in the playoffs, and we'll continue on in 2025. But again, use that promo code OG24. Bet $5, you'll get $150 in bonus bet if your bet wins. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
Speaking of the Carolina Hurricanes, that's next in our year in review. One window closes for the Carolina Hurricanes, but the window is slightly cracked. The story really was years of building up to a point. The idea that the Canes really were in a cup window with all the moves that they had made. Freddie Anderson coming back from a blood clotting issue, having the young Russian Kochetkov there, maybe stealing some games for you or going on a heater. You made a move for Jake Gensel, something that really indicated
move.
That was an indication that I wanted to see from the Carolina Hurricanes, that they were in it to freaking win it, Joe. But you can change some of the players out. You can make a move for Gensel. You can have a healthy Freddie Anderson. You still got to score goals. And there's an issue in there with the playoffs where things get tight for the Carolina Hurricanes and they just can't get their dudes to produce on a consistent level in the playoffs, which gets us to some offseason changes. But it was a very disappointing end for the Carolina Hurricane season.
I would love for you to be able to explain this to somebody in 1997 when the Hartford Whalers moved to North Carolina and became the Carolina Hurricanes. I would love for you to explain this to somebody. You know, the Carolina Hurricanes are a lot like the New York Yankees.
What?
They are a lot like the New York Yankees.
Uh-huh.
They are built for success over the course of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
That is more of their strength. Over an 82-game schedule, their strengths come through their culture, their forechecking, their effort, the commitment to the system, their commitment to the effort and the style that Rod Brind'Amour has emboldened with them. That is their strength.
Mm-hmm.
In the playoffs, they become the Corsi Cup champions. And that is, yes, you can control the puck. Yes, you can outshoot your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can be sound defensively. And you can win all of the stats that you win. Tom Dundon famously told us after the losing to the Florida Panthers, we could play that series 100 more times and we would have won. Our stats say we would have won it 84 times.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. You know,
but
I get it. The math is mathing for them. And in particularly at the beginning of this season, and Tom's reliance on Eric Tulsky and his elevation of Eric Tulsky after Don Waddell kind of abruptly left and took the Columbus Blue Jackets job.
We literally talked to him like 2 days before he left.
Sure. We should. I still think we probably should have picked up on the him giving away the Jarvis bag. Yeah. In like the least,
there was that
effective negotiation.
There was that.
Like, you're not really going to sit down and negotiate with this guy after being effusive in your praise of him like this, are you?
And Tulsky made it work. I mean, they got creative with the contract to make it work.
So their style in the playoffs is just, it's different in a 7-game series. That's where you need a goalie to kind of save you a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue in the Ranger series in particular, because I thought against the Islanders, I really thought Freddie looked like the guy. Remember against Florida the previous year, he was outstanding.
Yeah,
he was. It just so happened that Bobrovsky was this much better. And Florida goes on. They end up losing in the Cup finals. The next year they come back, they win the Cup. I looked at that series against the Rangers and I thought there were too many lapses at the end of periods that would cost them goals in one-score games where you're losing that ultimately determine whether you move on. And in this case, they didn't move on. And it gets you back into that circle of, are we talented enough? Is our top-end talent enough? And I did not mind the players that they let go on the offensive side. I know we have disagreed about Gensel and how they could have or could not have saved Gensel and kept him. He was a rental. He was always a rental, in my opinion. So I did not bang or deduct any points of my evaluation of the Hurricanes for losing Jake Gensel the way that they did. I did not like losing Pesce and Shea, the defensive pairing that they had lost, in the way that they lost him. I thought they were both guys they could have re-signed earlier in their careers, and they chose not to. But the other guys that they brought in, you're looking at them and you're thinking, I remember we asked Rod, and he was just kind of like, I mean, but like Roslovic comes in, do we miss Turbo Teravainen? No, because Roslovic has come in and actually been a better scorer.
It's a classic thing that happens around in any area, but it happens particularly with the Carolina Hurricanes. People fall in love with the players, and they don't like seeing them go. Even players that weren't necessarily producing. I mean, there was a lot of digital ink spilled over Justin Falk. There was a lot of digital ink spilled in arguments about
Tony
Jeff
DeAngelo.
Skinner and Tony DeAngelo and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, you come to find out, like, man, a lot of these guys are replaceable. But that didn't stop Rod from feeling it on a couple of the players that left, including the ones that you hit on, Shea and Pesce, were probably the ones that were the biggest hit, as Rod said.
You just hate seeing good people go, and we've took a hit. I'm just going to tell you that's a fact. We not just Don, but the couple of players we left that are out of here, and that's the part that for me is the hardest. You don't take it for granted, because I never did. You guys, you know it. I talk about it all the time, but it's going to be hard to replace.
Let's take Kokanyemi, for example, or we could take Natchez too if you want. How do you kind of go into your bag of tricks and say, okay, either this hasn't worked or this was effective for a stretch? How do I get that guy? How do I communicate with him?
So those two guys in particular are guys that we're going to have to lean on to, okay, like we need a little more. I think they're capable of it. Now, we didn't necessarily need it because I had other pieces to go to. Sometimes guys, when they have someone else in their rearview mirror, they don't handle it as well. When they know there is no one in that rearview mirror, they excel, right? So obviously leaning on that.
So smart.
So here's where, to advance this forward,
do the narrator voice.
Well, Natchez, it's worked out. Kokanyemi, not so much. I think with Kokanyemi, I think he is what he is at this point.
Yeah.
There's no breakthrough for Kokanyemi. And one thing that happens with Rod Brind'Amour, once you lose that dude's trust, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get back into it. And speaking of a lot of digital ink spilled over things that really don't matter, there's a lot of it spilled on Kokanyemi. It ain't going to happen. It's like fetch. Stop trying to make it happen. Natchez was always the curious one. And Rod hit it right there. Yeah, man, you got people in front of you. How are you going to react when all that stuff kind of breaks your way? Yeah. Natchez is absolutely taking it. But
44 points, 31 games. I mean, he's just been outstanding.
We'll wrap
a totally different gear.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Tell me conversations you didn't think you'd be having back in the late 90s, early 2000s related to the Carolina Hurricanes. It's great that they've hit here in the regular season. It's great that they're in contention and they're actually following through on the thing that I said that was going to happen in the summertime. Are they going to be a top of the conference leader? No. Are they a playoff team? Yes. And that's all that freaking matters. And once again, we find ourselves in the situation with the Carolina Hurricanes. It's a luxury problem. Cool. But look, Rod I'm not saying anything Rod doesn't disagree with. It's great that you win a division. It's great that you win a playoff series. Dude wants his name on the cup again. That's all that matters. When he has a complete logical misunderstanding of college athletics, cool. I don't get it. You won your conference? All right. But you didn't win the whole thing. You lost in the Final Four. That tells you where Rod's at. So I'm applying that standard here. Great that you're putting yourself in position to make the playoffs. But the real thing happens once we get into April. We'll see how that plays out. Speaking of championships and everything else, and this is more of a 2025 thing, but we must put a bow on UNC football. The gift that kept on giving all year, from Mac Brown getting mad at a signing day press conference about something that happened the year before. They called us pieces of shit. To us sitting down with Mac Brown at ACC kickoff in July and kind of getting a sense as to where this was going to be going into the season and how you knew it was going to end ugly. A mistake that I make sometimes is I look at things big picture and, okay, it might make sense to walk away in this particular situation. And when I talk to you, I'm then reminded, Mac loves this stuff, man.
I really do. I love fixing things.
Yeah.
I'm probably really bad ADHD and I need stuff to fix.
Oh?
And I got a lot of stuff to fix.
Everybody's talking about other people. How do you like this kind of lead up into a season?
I like this better till we're good. If we're good, we need to keep our mouth shut till we become great. We have the best academic standing in the ACC and the third best in the country. That's really cool. Nobody cares. They only care if it's not working. We have the second number of NFL draft choices behind Clemson in the ACC in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. That means we're recruiting the right players and developing. Nobody gives us credit for that, but it's facts. Mm-hmm. And then we've tied with NC State, and nobody would believe this, with the largest number of wins in ACC games in the last 5 years behind Clemson. So we're even with the number of wins that NC State has, and everybody's pumped about NC State and mad at us. So I got it.
Well, there's one game that changes that conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
And when we won it, there wasn't any hype over it. When we lost it twice close, they were mad. And then we lose it to big time. Yeah. We didn't play well last year. Everybody's real mad. So I got it. But it's also November. Everybody said for years, you got to remember November. Well, we haven't played well in November. Mm-hmm. So my job is to figure out why are we playing so good till about 2/3 of the season, and why are we not playing good in November? That's it.
Please give me your confession.
As excited as I was for Ron Shelton being in this studio, I could distinctly remember that interview in Charlotte. And did I even ask a question?
Not really.
I don't think I did, because I just couldn't get over that they didn't fire him last year.
I know.
What was I supposed to say to him?
Well,
why did you not show up for the game in Raleigh? I just couldn't even. You know me, I could fake it till you make it sometimes.
I get it.
But I just sat there and I'm just like, Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess.
But why?
Distorted reality. I mean, talk about being surreal. Me sitting there listening to him be like, oh, yeah, I'm just like.
The reason why I played that clip and why it was fascinating to me is that you can go back to July and identify that as the moment he was not going to walk away on his own.
Oh, he was making it
already
clear that whole day. And he would call the shots. He gets to say when he wants to.
He already had his talking points ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, right there. Look at our record. Look at the NFL guys. Remember, NFL Pipeline, Joe. NFL Pipeline.
Don't forget, I think he told us the Elko anecdote, didn't he?
Yep.
About how, hey, people keep saying I'm going to leave.
But he told us that, and he also told it to the group of reporters as well.
Yeah, but I already called Mike Elko and said, hey.
He had the stat. Look at all the guys who said I was gone. They're all fired or gone.
Yeah.
Okay. And he hired one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So that's where it was. And that was the moment back in July where I was like, yeah, dude, this thing with Mac Brown's not going to end. Well, that's credit to Bomani Jones, who with his Texas leanings said, yeah, man, it's going to play out just like at Texas. And it did. And we're here. And I'm not going to spend too much time the rest of the way on Bill Belichick because that's a 2025 story. And we've spent the last 3 weeks talking about it. But really, North Carolina and this push and pull and the palace intrigue of how Mac got there in the first place and his exit and nobody being happy and it resulting in Bill Belichick truly is a fascinating thing to observe and talk about. And Dave Doran is boring. NC State is boring, right? But they keep winning these games. Can they continue to win these games? Well, that's what 2024 was about, Joe. It was the year of the wolf. But NC State football didn't necessarily... Actually, before we move on to Kevin Keats, did NC State actually cash in on year of the wolf for football? I mean, they got Mac Brown out the paint. No, still didn't count. Still doesn't count. Anyway,
I'll say this about Mac. He remains, and you called this in real time on signing day when he stumbled at a press conference.
Yeah.
Mac Brown's a lot of things, but he is not someone who loses a press conference. It might have been the first time in his whole career he lost a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get through the season, and one of the greatest tricks he ever pulled was we don't even remember 21. They started the year in the top 10.
Yeah.
They lose to Virginia Tech. Mm-hmm. The opener. They go 6-7 unranked.
You all fall for it, though.
But you
fell for it.
I did. What I'm saying is the only other time it's happened was Mac Brown at Texas.
I know.
Where a team starts the year in the top 10
and
finishes with a losing record.
And by the way, the same thing's going to happen with North Carolina and Bill Belichick. Y'all falling for it. Y'all falling for it.
We can talk about that. I'm sure we will talk about it.
We don't need to talk about it today.
Then, the thing about Mac was in 22 and 23, 9-1, then he goes 0-4 to finish that year. 23 starts 6-0, then they finish 2-5. You can't finish years like that. With the talent that you're even outlining that you have. And then to have the losses as a double-digit favorite. I'm not talking about gambling. I'm talking out.
Yeah, outright favorite.
Outright. And I believe JMU ended up being the last of those. JMU, as I correctly predicted multiple times this summer, was going to be his Waterloo. It was. And finally, to close things out, it was a recurring theme. Y'all called it in the mailbag. It was the year of the wolf. It was highlighted by Kevin Keats and the NC State men's basketball team going on a Final Four run. Us going into D.C. On a short travel trip. Remember, we weren't going to stick around on Saturday. No. I think we were there for Thursday night.
No, we got there for.
No, I'm saying we were planning on staying.
We were there through Thursday night.
Yeah,
and I was going to drive back Friday when we were all said and done. Right, we got done recording stuff and then just enjoy my Saturday. Incorrect. We went into the ACC tournament thinking that Kevin Keats was going to get fired on Tuesday if they had lost
by halftime of the Louisville game,
and it was
still in play.
And of course, the rest is history. Wes Moore, as we talked about with Luke DeCock in the Triangle 10, he was a part of that, getting the women's team to the Final Four as well. Hey, NC State was running so hot that there was a back-to-back cheese rolling champ. Joe, shout out to Abby Lampy, and you had.
I don't think they were back-to-back, but she got her second.
And you caught up with Keats in the summer. And went over to Raleigh Times. Shout out to our guys over at Empire Properties. You went over to Raleigh Times and sat down with Kevin Keats. And look, man, and this kind of projects into 2025 with another basketball program, which we'll get to in a second. It's toxic. still kind of toxic a little bit because people are just waiting for the bottom to drop out. But it was toxic around NC State going into that Tuesday at the ACC tournament. And Keats had an interesting perspective on it after you had asked him.
I mean, you had to be legitimately concerned about your future, right?
I was disappointed in the outside noise.
Yeah, there was a lot.
I want you to think about this. In the ACC, there are only 5 teams that have been to the tournament the last couple of years, and actually 3 years. It's only been 3 now that's been back-to-back. That's us, Virginia, and Duke. Just to see how people acted or reacted to my players was disappointing. Not me.
Are you over that now?
I am. I mean, and everybody, let me say this as I say disappointment. Everybody has their right to have their opinion. I never get mad at someone for their opinion. But at the end of the day, we have to recruit here. We have to retain here. We're talking about who we are as a program. Go back. We're the 114th team here at NC State. It's only been 4 that went to the Final Four, and we're one of 4 of them. It's only been 4 staffs. We're one of 4 of it.
So that was Kevin Keats in July, late June, July. Let's fast forward to ACC tip-off in October. He honed his message. He's like, he had his stats. Like, hey, we're only one of 4, 117, yada, yada, yada. But then Kevin Keats just dropped a straight bar on us at tip-off.
Now, normally NC State makes their fan base look like this for bad reasons. For the first time, though, in 40 years, you made the fan base look like this for good reasons. So congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
That
I
is
hope
a
everybody
sticker.
can see that. I love it. I love this.
I believe that's actually a capture of Giglio in Phoenix.
That's what I was going to say. Is this Joe in Phoenix?
I'm pretty sure.
Or DC. DC was a little rough too. Now
you got to do it again.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Okay.
I got 30. Don't I have 37 years?
Here's your confetti.
Touche.
I got 37 years, and you're going to be hearing that a lot, man. His contract's locked in. And look, this is something that you said back in April. It's like, enjoy it, man. Like let's. If this season doesn't go the way that you want it to, let's say they missed the NCAA tournament, which is very much on the table.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Open up your iPhone and go look at some old photos from Hillsborough Street.
Yeah.
Hanging out with your friends. If you want to feel good, just go fire up the OG Elite 8 after dark and go watch me trying to corral Will Brinson in that microphone and drunk Giglio putting up the double birds on Duke.
Listen,
just think about the good times, Joe.
As Kevin asked me after after Phoenix, I said, you could have lost to Texas Tech in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It would not have mattered. Honestly, he goes, you're not. He goes, you don't believe that. I go, no, Kevin, I do.
I don't believe that.
Here's why. Because they didn't win the ACC championship by beating Boston College and Pitt.
Yeah.
Or even like a Wake Forest. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They ran the gauntlet, starting with Louisville, one of the proud programs, Syracuse, a proud program, and then Duke, Virginia on the shot.
On that shot.
The beginning of the end. That's the beginning of the end of NC State shit. And then they beat Carolina in the championship game. And other than that shot, in that 9-game run, they weren't lucky.
No.
And it wasn't some sort of heater or sun run. It wasn't somebody making a bunch of threes.
No.
In fact, their three-point shooting was unremarkable.
They were just better.
That was the only good three-point shot, notable three-point shot in the whole run.
And it almost didn't go in.
They just outplayed teams. They were better than teams. They defended.
Mm-hmm.
They played, as when we saw Roy Williams at Raleigh Country Club before the Corn Ferry Tour event.
Yeah.
I had to point it out to him. I go, didn't you at least take some joy in that there was a team from North Carolina in the Triangle winning an ACC championship and going to the Final Four, playing your exact style with 2 bigs and a scoring point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was the Carolina Roy Williams Dean Smith playbook that they won by, not this 3-point barrage, not some sort of, lucky streak. And that's where you kind of get into the NCAA tournament. Of course, to beat Duke in the Final 8, a Marquette team that people thought had penciled in after Kentucky had lost. Oh, they were lucky to beat Oakland, the same Oakland team that beat Kentucky and knocked them out of the South region there. Then you run into Purdue in Phoenix. And the real beauty of Phoenix was not obviously the game. It was the opportunity to bring generations of NC State fans who had been starving for this type of success, to just be able to say something to your Carolina friends, to say something to your Duke friends, that you finally had your moment. You know, we joke all the time about, oh, well, it's the 41st anniversary of 1983. Oh, it's the 37th anniversary of, wait, what year is this compared to 74? They can finally honor a new team, and you finally introduce a new generation to having your moment, to having your coaster of the arm in arm with Carolina. And there were some Carolina fans actually in the final, in the NCAA tournament, rooting for them in the sense, like, what a great story. Look at Burns. What a great story. Right? Like, who didn't like DJ Burns? Right. I mean, even Baycott at the end was like, yes, I was rooting against them, but not because of Burns. But he was playing his ass off, right? So I think that is the beauty of it. Then Wes Moore breaking through. Wes has won the ACC, but his guards were tremendous this past year. And they're back, and he's going to give him a chance to get back to the Final Four. So then you have the women in the Final Four, state men in the Final Four. Elliott Avent and the baseball team making an unlikely run through Georgia to get to the College World Series, and a real redemption for him and the program, and the way that they had been unceremoniously evicted from Omaha 3 years ago. Those were all great things for NC State. And then you had the momentum carrying it, carrying into football, which after they had gone hard in the portal. They had gone hard for them. You know, their budget went up to about $4 or $5 million in NIL, and a lot of players were brought in. Kevin Concepcion was saved, and you know, Grayson McCall, one of the prize quarterbacks out of the portal.
Here's the thing: Kevin Keats, he might have killed NC State shit. Okay, as you laid out for the ACC tournament, I called it back then. I never want to hear about NC State shit ever again. If you lose, man, you just lost, or you know what, you just stink. One of the two, right? Of the way they went about it. But there might be a force stronger than NC State shit, Joe. Triangle good. Football, triangle good. That actually might be, you know, it's like, you thought Darth Vader was the bad?
No.
Nah, but there's the Emperor. And triangle good might be Palpatine. We'll see. And there he is.
We'll see.
Somehow Palpatine has returned. And we'll close on
he
this.
loses in the end.
He does. But I will say this. I will give NC State and the Year of the Wolf all the credit in the world, because it provided some great content. And honestly, the greatest moment in the fledgling OG Triangle Media era.
That's for you, all right? And again, the same rules apply. You can't give it away. It's yours. Don't throw it either. Oh my gosh, this is the worst. ACC tournament runner-up. Kudos to you. This. Look at that color scheme. It fits. This is double Tar Heel. Pretty brilliant. This is pretty brilliant. You know what? I'll keep this to remind me that you just have to go the extra mile if you want to win it all, right? And then NC State can have nice things. They can have nice things, and they do have nice things. Wow.
Sometimes I wonder why he talks to us, or me, I guess.
Do you think that Roy Cooper, if you're just listening via the podcast and not on YouTube, that was Roy Cooper. We handed him a mug. Shout out to Anna over at Sound Off, who's been an incredible help with our graphics this year, including our fun festive holiday background today. She helped put together that mug. And do you think the mug is still around somewhere?
No, I hope he smashed it into 7,000 pieces.
Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for 2024 for OG Triangle Media. Thanks to everybody who listened, watched, rated us, left comments, bought a shirt, supported our corporate champions. And there was many to thank. You know, obviously we have people who help us beyond just supporting us as a corporate champion. As I mentioned, Anna over at Sound Off helps with our graphics. Brian over at Nice Price with the jingles.
Yes, Brian needs something.
He needs a lot of love, man. He needs a lot of love. So does Anna for putting up with my procrastination on, hey, I need this thing. Well, I need details. Oh yeah, I forgot to give you those like 2 weeks ago. So they've been an immense help for what we've been doing. And again, thank you for listening in 2024. Hopefully you all have a very good Christmas. You'll have a very good and safe New Year's, and we will see you on January 2nd when we're back for a Butcher's Market OG Live, and we get back into the thick of things. We'll see you then.